Hello, my name's Sarah Doyle, and I'm going to be doing my Pecha Kucha on the Absolute World located in Mississauga, Ontario. With the final tower only being completed last year, they are already known among the world's best new skyscrapers, as stated by the Chicago-based Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat. After the design was released to the public, they were an immediate hit, and were quickly dubbed the Marilyn Monroe Towers after the well-known legend. The names are now used interchangeably, although more commonly referred to as the latter. As you may have noticed, the towers have achieved this name to their curvy form, which was almost inspiration to Monroe's famous body. To achieve this twist on the towers, you can see on the screen that it is all about the rotation of each floor. Each floor is now rotated a certain number of degrees. An example is how the first few floors of the tower only rotate 1 or 2 degrees at a time, but gradually the number of degrees that each floor rotates spans to a greater amount. Now, although the towers have the same design concept, they clearly are slightly different. Tower 1, the one in the foreground, was designed first to become the slimmer with more prominent angles towards the middle, and then grow in the other half. Tower 2, in the back, does the opposite. It is slimmer at the bottom and top half, and grows in size in the middle. In the example on screen, we can see how, naturally, the floors in the middle have the most change. The ground floor has a rotation of -10 degrees, and the very top has one of 198 degrees. What I find most interesting is knowing that each floor varies in size, which means that the layout changes too. To now see a closer look at one of the levels, you notice how complex each apartment is. This is just another aspect of design that moves away from the cookie-cutter approach. Rectilinear apartments and condos have basic floor plans. With the apartment's oval shape, the level of interest increases. Here's an example of a 2-bedroom with a den, which would be made possible into a 3rd bedroom. Light is able to pass through the entire suite, with only the bathrooms, of course, that it's blocked off from. The kitchen comes with appliances and with a breakfast bar. The common areas are open concept. The balcony completely wraps around the apartment with dividers between tenants. The Absolute Towers are part of a 5-tower complex. The other towers, as seen on the screen, are named the Absolute City Center 1 and 2 and Absolute Vision. Absolute World 1 and 2 completed the set. The Absolute Complex was designed to set Mississauga apart, especially from Toronto, and it is now one of the most sought-after areas to live in. This is the site plan of the Absolute Complex, which is beautiful all in itself. It has lush landscaping, townhome lofts, and a gated entry along with the towers. Living inside the Absolute Gates gives you access to the Absolute Club, which has an outdoor and indoor pool, an exercise complex, a gym, a private cinema, 3 party rooms, and 5 furnished guest suites. Here is a bird's eye view of the Absolute World. You can really see how the towers stand out from the other buildings. Although they are the most visually interesting, the change designers are making with the architecture of skyscrapers and progressing even in the other buildings. This is a photo of Mississauga's Mayor Hazel McCallion and one of the Absolute architects during the Absolute construction. On November 28, in 2006, Mississauga Mayor Hazel McCallion announced that an international design competition was going to be held for the building of the 4th tower for Absolute World. There were over 600 registered, 92 architects in 72 countries that took place in this competition. On January 30th, in 2007, 6 finalists were picked, which were then put on display in Square One Mall for the public and judges to vote on. 2 months later, on March 28th of 2007, the winner was announced to be Yang Sang Ma, the founder of Mad Office, a Beijing architect and design firm. Sales were to start in May of 2007, with construction beginning later that year and an anticipated completion in 2009. Now, the buildings weren't completed, finally, till just last year. This was due to the addition of the 2nd Monroe Tower. Originally, there was only to be 1. This was decided due to the immediate adoration from the public of the design. This pushed back the original construction date 2 years. You can see on the screen the original 3D rendering with only the first tower. There have been some critics of the original design of the skyscraper versus the finished piece. Due to popularity, more square footage was added to the interiors, which eliminated what was an even more prominent curve of the tower. Regardless, the design swayed the public and created Mississauga to be a landmark. Here is an original 3D rendering of the Absolute World 1. This rendering is of the additional tower Absolute World 2. Although both dubbed Marilyn Monroe, some have stated that because this tower is shorter and gets wider in the center as opposed to thinner like the first, it is the masculine version of Monroe. The concept for the tower at the beginning was very simple. We just wanted to make something organic but different, more natural and more soft, and not something too strong that would remind people of money or power, as stated by the architect Yang Son Ma. Although the towers are slightly different in construction, they both have the same incredible concept. Once again, this is Hazel McCallion and the Mad Architect, and they are now standing on one of the balconies of the Absolute World. The average two-bedroom suite sells for about $1,500 monthly, and the penthouse sells for a whopping $3.2 million, which is triple in price if located in Toronto. The towers becoming noticed worldwide was no surprise to the competition that took place. This led to great interest internationally, to not only see who would win, but to how the design would be brought to life. The structural boundaries was an accomplishment in itself. Another aspect that great in popularity is how Monroe was tied into the towers. Those who admired her loved the idea of buildings in tribute to her. The Absolute Worlds have interested me for years, as I lived in Mississauga when the construction was in place, and I'm proud to have seen them grow and to be world famous. They truly started as a dream from a young Chinese architect, and has now given Mississauga a design phase and many living there joy. All I have to do now is win the lottery and move in myself.